here for the first time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the
over
back.
there.
Is that right? Hare Krishna, welcome. And to everyone else who's been coming here before, welcome. I see a few known faces. I wouldn't say old faces, they're all young and beautiful. Few known faces in the audience, so I'm really grateful to be here and honored to be speaking in front of you all. There's a lot of exalted souls here, and I pray for your blessings before I can begin. With your blessings, I'll speak a little something about Lord Sri Ram. Or you stay there? Okay. I'd love to speak about Lord Sri Ram because Tuesday is going to be Ram Navami. So why don't we, before we begin, do the invocation prayers. And I put this up there in case you're new and you don't know. Is this big enough to read or? Yeah, from the back? Okay. Okay. We can all chant together. Om Jnanamirandasya Vinanjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamiyam Tatapi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Prabhupadakamam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I will chant this prayer. You can chant with me if you would like. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Deenataranam. This prayer means Mukam Karoti Vachalam. By the mercy of Guru, even the dumb can speak eloquently and even the lame can cross mountains. So if you haven't yet selected a spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada is our eternal Shiksha Guru. So we can pray to Srila Prabhupada that he can guide us in all our life's journeys. Yeah. So let's start speaking about Lord Sri Ram, welcoming Lord Ram into our hearts. So these are the deities in ISKCON of New Jersey, Tobacco Temple, Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman. So Krishna comes again and again in every yuga, right? Now the scriptures establish that Lord Sri Krishna is the original form of Godhead and all other forms are his expansion. And there are numerous proofs. Sometimes there is a debate, is Vishnu the original, is Krishna the original, is Narayan, right? And I would like to give an analogy. Just like you can start with a candle, right? And then from that one candle, you light that candle, and from that one candle, you light, say, 100 other candles, right? If you look at it, all the other candles are the same as that first candle, and yet there is an original candle, right? So Lord Sri Krishna and his expansions are like that Krishna is the original, and we know this on the basis of scripture, not on the basis of someone's sentiment or someone likes Krishna more and someone likes Narayan more and someone likes Ram more. It's not like that, right? We always try to base everything we do and say on the basis of what the Shastras tell us, what the scriptures tell us. So we've heard from scriptures that Sri Krishna is the original form of Godhead. And in Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna what? You can chant together if you'd like. Paritranaya sarvanam vinashaya dushkranam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself, Krishna says, appear millennium after millennium, right? And so we'll unpack this a little bit. I already mentioned Tuesday is the appearance day of Lord Sri Ram. For those of you who would like to follow, the recommendation is to fast all day. There isn't a fast breaking, but if you're hungry, you can have Ekadashi Prasad that day. But ideally, don't eat grains and beans, or fast as much as you can. The main thing is to remember Lord Ram and to hear about Lord Ram. Externals, fasting, you can adjust it as per your bodily requirements, right? So, there is a deeper reason why the Lord appears. So we heard that, the Paritranaya Sadhanam verse, that to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, right? When there are demons troubling the world, he appears, and to protect the devotees, he appears, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. But there is a deeper reason why the Lord appears. And that reason is given by Shukadeva Goswami in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. You can chant together if you'd like. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manushadeha manasikaha bhadeta krishna krida yashuda tatparo bhavet. This is Bhagavatam 10.33.36. When the Lord assumes a human-like body to show mercy to his devotees, he engages in such pastimes as will attract those who hear about them to become dedicated to him. So there is a very deep meaning in this, that simply by hearing about the Lord and his pastimes and about his devotees, because remember, the Lord is never alone. Have you ever seen a picture of Krishna or Ram just standing by himself saying, listen, I need to be in solitary, meditation. I need to just be away from all of you guys, Never. You'll never see a picture or a description of Krishna just by himself. Right now, he might be by himself for the purpose of pastime, but that's just a short time before he's again with the devotees, right? So, all the pastimes about the Lord that we hear are connected with his devotees. And by hearing these pastimes, there is an effect on the heart. Just like by hearing something very agitating, for example, cable news, right? You get very agitated and angry. Similarly, by hearing about the Lord, our hearts become not only pacified, but we actually start to develop affection for him. For example, in many traditions, right, in Hinduism, in Christianity, in Islam, right, it is said that we should worship the Lord and love him. Now, worship the Lord I can understand. But if you don't hear about the Lord, how do you love him? Right? For example, many of you are seeing me for the first time. If I tell you at the end of this lecture, you should all be in love with me. Is that feasible? Is that practical? You don't know anything about me. For all you know, and it's probably true, but I'm the biggest rascal on the planet. Right? How could you be in love with me? So, to love someone, you need to actually know them. And that's why, about Krishna and his various incarnations, it's extremely important for us to hear. Hearing is the first step towards falling in love with Krishna and his different incarnations. So, when we come to Lord Ram, where do we hear about Lord Ram? Right? So the first and the most authoritative source is Valmiki Ramayana. And Valmiki Ramayana was written right around the time that Lord Ram appeared on this planet. Anyone want to share when Lord Ram appeared? Like, when did he actually walk on this planet? It's not a few thousand years ago. I'll give you a hint. It's not even a few 100,000 years ago. More than a million years. Yeah, 2 million years ago, right? Close to 2 million years ago. Because he appeared in Treta Yuga, right? Cycles of Vedic time, right? They go through Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar and then Kali Yuga, right? So he's definitely more than 1,000,000, 5,000,000, 7 years ago. So at the time that Lord Rama appeared, this great sage Valmiki was in meditation, and he wanted to know, is there a person who exemplifies the ideal behavior of a human being? Is there an ideal human being? And his Guru Maharaj Narad Muni appeared to him to say, yes, there is. In fact, he's on the planet right now, and his name is Ram. He's the son of Dashrath, right? And so Valmiki was given divine vision by Lord Brahma, who appeared before him, and he said, I will give you divine vision to see the entire pastimes of the Ramayana that are going to happen in future. And he started writing down those pastimes. And all the pastimes happened exactly as they were described in Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana is 24,000 verses long. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, at several places, he writes about how one of the things he wanted to do was to complete the translation and purports of Valmiki Ramayana. Because Valmiki Ramayana is the authoritative original Ramayana. And he's written in different places how he really was keen to do this. But if you look at Srila Prabhupada's journey, it really seems fantastic. Old man coming to the West at the age of 70, 69, 70. And in 11 years, he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, right? So many other books, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Queen Kunti's prayers, right? All those. He wrote so many books, and he set up an international society. He could not get to Valmiki Ramayana. But we are fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has left behind a legacy of fantastic devotees, really, really exalted devotees, one of whom is His Holiness Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. And Jayapataka Swami Maharaj has, all the gurus have very learned disciples, but Jayapataka Swami Maharaj has a particularly focused set of disciples who are focused in the sense that they're focused on translating Valmiki Ramayana. And they've actually done 2 cantos so far. And it's going to take a few years for this entire Valmiki Ramayana to be published. I actually keep getting every canto as it's published or every book as it's published. And if any of you wants to know, I'll give you the address of the devotee who gets them from India, and he will sell it to you at cost. Sorry? I don't remember his name. Sri Krishna Radkar. No, you mean the one who passes on the books. Sri Krishna Radkar. Yeah, I'll pass on his name. And correct. He's the one who's translating. Correct. And it's very beautifully written. So, Valmiki Ramayana, we hear about Lord Ram. What is the other place we hear about Lord Ram? Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? Now, Srimad Bhagavatam was narrated 5,000 years ago, or was narrated multiple times across the ages, millions of years ago as well. But the Bhagavatam we see today that Srila Prabhupada translated, and you see those copies in the back, that was put down on 5,000 years ago. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 18,000 verses long, Shukadeva Goswami, the speaker of Bhagavatam, chants only 94 verses out of 18,000 about Lord Ram. Now you might think, wow, Ram is like one of the principal incarnations of Krishna. How come there's only 94 verses? And you know what the secret is? Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj. Now this, by the time he tells him in 9th canto, like 5.5, 6 days had passed. And the time for Parikshit Maharaj to depart, to be bitten by the snake bird, because he was cursed to die in 7 days, it was approaching, and Shukadeva Goswami really wanted to get to Krishna's pastimes and then talk about Uddhav Gita in 11th canto, right? And talk about the 12th canto. So what he said is very significant. He said to Maharaj Parikshit, you have heard about Ramayana again and again since the time you were born. And therefore, I'm only going to touch on it in summary and in passing, right? Why? Because Ramayana has been extant or in existence for millions of years. So, by the time Parikshit Maharaj had grown up, he had heard about Ramayana again and again. Like many of us, I'm sure, I see ethnically Indian background people here, Many of us, I know my own childhood, my grandfather, father's father, used to tell me Ramayana and Mahabharata stories every single night. And so I grew up listening to Ramayana, fell in love with Lord Rama because of all his beautiful pastimes, right? So Ramayana has been in existence for such a long time. And so Bhagavatam makes only passing reference to Ramayana. But there are numerous retellings. Those of you who might be from South India There are Ramayans in the south. Those of you who are from north, Tulsidas Ramayana, right? There are so many retellings, folklore, stories and so on, regional scriptures. There are even international variations of Ramayana. There are stories in Brazil, there are stories in Thailand, in Japan, in Malaysia, and there was even a movie, a Hollywood movie about Ramayana. So it's very widespread. So why did Lord Rama appear, right? So one of the first reasons is it was time for the scheduled incarnation of the Lord to appear. So the Lord appears, it's described in Srimad Bhagavatam what the incarnations are, and the Lord appears on schedule. Krishna is described as Swarat, meaning totally independent, which means that no rules actually apply to him. Rules apply to us, but rules don't apply to him. And yet, he follows a schedule which he doesn't have to, right? And he appears on schedule. So it was time for the scheduled incarnation of the Lord to appear in Treta Yuga. What was happening? The demons Ravana and Kumbhakarna were creating terror, and they needed to be destroyed. So the verse we read from Bhagavad Gita, right? Destroy the miscreants. And demonstrate who is an ideal human being, right? So these are the three external reasons in one sense why did Lord Rama appear. But beyond that, I'm going to let you in on a secret, okay? And I'll tell you why I'm going to let you in on a secret. Because sometimes, especially in modern day folklore or television programs or whatever, there is nonsense propaganda that is talked about Lord Rama. And we as bhaktas of Lord Rama need to be absolutely armed as to what the real facts are behind the pastimes and behind the Ramayana, so that we can actually counter such misleading propaganda, right? So he wanted to taste a variety of emotions. Now, if you think about it, if we are as human beings, we taste a variety of emotions ourselves, right? Sometimes we get upset, sometimes we're happy, sometimes we are excited about something, right? Sometimes we're depressed, right? All those emotions have a source in the Supreme Lord, right? And the Lord is a person, and he wants to taste emotions just like we do. We want to taste emotions because he wants to taste emotions, right? And so he wanted to taste a variety of relationships which Ramayana talks about. He wanted to exchange love with his devotees, right? Because Krishna owns everything, he doesn't need anything. And yet, he has pastimes with his devotees. Why? Because he wants to exchange love with us. He wants to feel that affection, right? And so Lord Ram appeared for that. And he wanted to conduct pastimes that will enliven and uplift devotees for generations to come. In fact, Valmiki was given a benediction by Lord Brahma that as long as this earth has mountains and oceans, Valmiki Ramayana will be chanted till that time. Which means that it will be chanted till the time of the universal dissolution. Okay? What is the effect of hearing about the Lord? I mentioned that earlier, but there are some specific. In fact, if you do a search on Vedabase, which contains all of Srila Prabhupada's writings, if you conduct a search on Vedabase of just this, the effect of hearing about the Lord, you'll probably see 10 or 15,000 references come up. So the scriptures are full of explanations of what happens when we hear about the Lord. So the first one from Bhagavatam 7th canto, discourses concerning the activities of the Lord, in which the glories of his devotees are also found, are extremely pleasing to devotees. Such wonderful topics always counteract the miseries of the materialistic way of life. What Shukadeva Goswami is saying is, actually this is Lord Brahma's prayers in this chapter, but what Shukadeva Goswami is narrating is not that the materialistic miseries go away, but devotees who hear about the Lord are enabled to rise above those materialistic miseries, right? Because this world is designed to cause suffering. Why? Because if we get too comfortable here, we'll never want to go back to the spiritual world, right? So even those who are very rich or very beautiful or very advanced, there is something or the other that bothers them. There's aches and pains, there is death of loved ones, right? There is accidents, incidents, right? So we can never be fully happy in this world. But we can rise above the materialistic miseries by hearing about the Lord. Such a simple but powerful formula that has been given to us. Then, Srila Prabhupada writes in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, Para Bhakti, or spontaneous love of God, is the basis of an intimate relationship with the Lord. Not a distant relationship, an intimate relationship of service. Right? This highest stage of relationship with the Lord can be attained simply by hearing about Him, His name, form, quality, etc., from authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Ramayana stirs deep emotions. Do you agree? When you read Ramayana, don't you cry?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, his life, for me at least, it seems so tragic. That wow, at such a young age, right on the eve of coronation, he's given like this incredible news that he has to, he has to fulfill that vow, which is given by God, that is given by his father.
Right.
And then, pretty much, then he loses his father. Then he's banished for like not 1 or 2 years, for several years. And then he loses his wife. And then, it's just one tragedy after another. It's just, that's why I feel very sad for him.
So wonderful. The predominating rasa or mellow of Ramayana is Karunya, right? And Karunya means melancholy or sadness. But that sadness is not like the sadness we feel, when we lose our iPhone or we lose like our health or whatever. Not that kind of sadness. That sadness actually elevates. But Ramayana really stirs the emotions. And that's why it's really important to hear about Ramayana from authentic sources who have understood Ramayana in parampara. Not just with their own brains, but listening to superior sources like the rishis and the gurus from tradition. Right? The activities of Lord Ram and his devotees' activities are so sweet and so transcendental that they generate deep emotions. Right? Pandit Srivastava rightly touched on all the things happening to Lord Ram. But you look at what happens to everyone connected with Lord Ram, right? Look at Bharat Maharaj in one sense. Like, when you look at it, Bharat Maharaj is perhaps the most tragic figure in the Ramayana because he actually did not cause that incident to happen that caused his mother Kaikeyi to banish Ram, right? He was far away. He was visiting his in-laws at that time. And he was devoted to Ram. When he came back and he tried to bring Ram back, right? When he discovered that Ram had already left and he tried to bring Ram back, Ram refused because he said, I've given word to my father and my father's word is sacrosanct, so I cannot, go back on it. So you please go back and rule on my behalf. You know what was happening to Bharat for 14 years? Every single resident of Ayodhya looked down upon him. They spat on him or they were like criticizing him, insulting him, that because of you, your mother made our beloved Lord Ram go. And all he was doing, he was just gently serving. And he remained faithful to Ram. People, if they were ordinary people, they can say, Ram is in the forest. It's okay. They would have justified it. I need to properly rule the kingdom, so sit on the throne and do everything. And I'll hand it back to him when he comes. Right? And of course, after 14 years, we know power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Who knows, he could have fought a battle with Ram instead of giving it back to him. But Bharat did not do that. He lived like a mendicant. You know what he ate every day? Barley that was soaked in cow urine. This is the son of a king. And that's all he ate. So the life of Bharat is very tragic. Why? Tragic in a wonderful way. Because he is so dedicated to Ram. He's not thinking of his own welfare. He's thinking of selfless service to the Supreme Lord. Right?
What about Kaikeyi?
Kaikeyi regretted because after they went to Chitrakoot with Bharat, by that time her nasha, they call it the intoxication, had worn off, the mantra-induced intoxication. And she was so devastated. What happened to me? I loved Ram like my own son. And I'm doing so much disservice to him. And she tried to beg him to come back also. And Ram, it's described in Ramayana. This is why, again, the Ramayana makes you cry. And I don't want to cry while I'm speaking. But Ram was so gentle to Kaikeyi. when all the army and everyone in Ayodhya came to Chitrakoot to beg Ram to go back, Ram was especially loving to Kaikeyi, and he instructed all the citizens of Ayodhya who listened to his every word. He instructed them, treat Kaikeyi like your mother. She's my mother and I love her. Okay? She's not wrong. This is the will of Providence, he said. Okay? So yeah, Kaikeyi also, such a tragic figure, right? And yeah.
Why Rama sent Sita to Chandu?
I'm
Somewhere
going
I get
I'm going
angry on that part actually.
correct. I'm going to actually touch on it. And yeah.
I want to add another thing. Another reason why it stirs such deep emotion is he had this unwavering idea of not falling off the path of dharma and standing on the path of dharma, like single wife and staying with her, and wife following and serving his brother, and the brother serving him, and respecting Kaikeyi no matter what. So he stands as the single lone figure that we still look upon after millions of years because he was unwavering dharma.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It's very true. I mean, there's honestly I've heard Ramayana lectures so many times from my guru, from different Shiksha gurus, and no matter how many times you hear it, you're never tired of hearing Ramayana, right? So the next point is vulnerability evokes love. Ram is the Supreme Lord, but you know what he shows? He shows vulnerability. And how does he show vulnerability? Because think about it. If someone is rough and tough and they're always in command, is it possible to love them? Not possible. You're like a little afraid, like, oh, okay, thank you, yes, Supreme Court Judge, President of the United States, right? You're in awe and reverence. But that person shows vulnerability and shows that they're crying or they're devastated. Immediately your heart fills with affection, and you want to serve them and help them overcome that suffering, right? And so Ram shows that when Sita is kidnapped, he is devastated. He's crying, and he's not an ordinary person, like attached to his wife and, just crying because his wife, has been taken away, which obviously is understandable. But he's the Supreme Lord. But he's enjoying that rasa of separation from Sita. And separation, the Gaudiya Acharyas tell us that separation is actually higher than union. It makes union even sweeter. Kind of like, when you eat something sweet, if there is a little spice in that also, it makes for a very nice combination, right? If it's just sweet, yes, it's good, and it's addictive actually. It's good, but, if it's sweet and spicy, it's very beautiful. Similarly, separation and union, the Lord also wants to desire that. Like those of you who have kids, when they go to school, for example, don't the mothers think of their kids all the time? Like, what's going on with my child, right? Is he okay? What's he studying, right? I see mothers nodding in the back, right? And you have a little baby, but you'll find out when your child goes to school, right? You're like constantly thinking of that. That's love in separation, right? Now imagine if the child were taken by the grandparents for 2 weeks to some place, right? My God, the mother and father would be like frantic. Like 2 weeks without my child, what's going to happen, right? So Ram is similarly experiencing the love in separation when Sita is kidnapped. Yeah? When he meets the dying Jatayu. Perhaps my favorite story in Ramayana. Like every time I hear this story, I cry. Jatayu's dedication, he knew it was futile to try and fight Ravana, but he fought anyway. Because he knew that if I delay him, there's a deep meaning behind that story. That it wasn't just, let me try and see if I can do something. But there was a particular muhurat in which Ravana had kidnapped Sita. And if the transition to Lanka had finished in that muhurat, then the muhurat's blessing was that whatever is taken will never come back. Okay? So Jatayu wanted to delay that muhurat, and then the next muhurat was actually whatever is taken has to be returned back to the original person. Right? So this was the deeper meaning behind Jatayu's story. So Ram, how he cries and he embraces Jatayu, he gives him, he speaks loving words, soothes his wounds, and then gives him a funeral. He said, I couldn't do a funeral for my father because I was away. but you are a friend of my father's, because Jatayu and his brother Sampati are actually friends of Dasharatha. And so, you are like my father, I'm going to give you a funeral that is meant from a son to a father. So he does that. Oops. Excuse me. I don't know why this went. Since I have it as transition, it has to go through step by step. Okay. When Ram and Lakshmana are felled by Indrajit's arrows, the Sarpa arrows, the arrows that, snakes bound them with, like as if tight ropes, he shows vulnerability. He's the Supreme Lord. He could have just, poof, the snakes would have been destroyed. But by showing that vulnerability, he attracted huge outpouring of emotion from Hanuman, from Jambavan, from all the devotees who were there, who rushed to serve the Supreme Lord. And, both of them are the Supreme Lords, Krishna and Balaram, Ram and Lakshman, right? And to heal them. Separation from Sita. And I'm going to answer that question because I actually have a slide where I want to talk about some of the controversies on which, modern day pundits, they try to say, oh, Ram is bogus, or he's actually a horrible personality. Look what he did to Sita, and poor Sita, right? So we need to talk about this, because if your family members or friends tell you that, you need to be able to push back and tell them what is the deeper meaning. Yeah? So how do we welcome Ram into our hearts? I'll go through this quickly because I want to touch on the controversies. By hearing about him from authorized devotees. We talked about hearing about the Lord. Yeah? Serving and helping others to get close to him. So if someone has something obscene or blasphemous to talk about Lord Ram, the best way to deal with these people is gently. Try to convert their heart. If you try to beat them over the head, it'll have the opposite effect. They'll go away. Right? They'll be even more entrenched. Right? Sincerely praying to him, my dear Lord Ram, from this day I'm yours. In fact, let's do this little prayer together. Ready? 3,
Yes.
2, 1.
My dear Lord Ram, from this day I am yours.
And why? Because in Yuddha-kand, what does Lord Ram tell? This is when the monkeys were debating what to do with Vibhishan and his 4 servants who had come to surrender to Ram. They wanted to kill him and get rid of them. They are Rakshasas, we shouldn't help them or bring them over. Lord Ram said, it is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. Even if Ravana himself were to approach me for shelter, I would give him shelter. This is Ram's own promise, and therefore we say, my dear Lord Ram, from this day I am yours. Remember this prayer, because Tuesday is Ram Navami. Please stand before Lord Ram and Sita Devi and Lakshman and Hanuman and pray like this, because we need Lord Ram's blessings, and we need to be free from the fear that grips us in this material world. Yeah? Let's do once more. My dear
Lord Ram, from this day I am yours.
Okay, controversies in Ram Leela. The first is killing of Vali. Yes? Because how did Lord Ram kill Vali? From the front in a fair battle or from the back?
From the back.
From the back. Yes? Seems unfair, doesn't it? Yeah? But it's not. And I will explain why. And I'm going to take this off for a second.